Hey everybody, Justin here, welcoming you to tacosandgeeks.com. And today we have a great interview. We have Kyra Gardner, writer and director of the new documentary Living with Chucky. She's going to be talking all about her new documentary, which you can catch April 5th on video demand and on Screenbox. So make sure you check it out. So without further ado, check out our interview. Later days.
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, so Living with Chucky. First, I gotta say, amazing documentary.
Oh,
Congratulations. I guess my first question is because I love the ending, by the way, because the central theme that I got from it at the end of the day was family, and you growing up within this family. What was that like? I know you touched a little bit about it on the documentary, but what was it really like growing up with kind of like this horror family around?
it's interesting because I really like that was the first time I had been meeting the people around the franchise was in the documentary. So I had all these like names that my dad would mention when I was a kid all the time. Don Mancini, David Kirshner. I'm like, who are these people? And then finally getting to meet them and talk about it was amazing. But growing up with it, yeah, it seemed almost distant, like this job that my dad had because he did Seed first and they filmed in Romania. And then after that, they filmed everything in Canada. So it was this separate entity of almost like long distant cousins. And that's as far as like the cast and crew go. And then as far as Chucky himself, it's hard to think of it even objectively because he's been around since I was 4, just like at our house. So like imagining a lifetime where he wasn't at all of my birthday parties growing up or a part of the Halloween decorations that my parents would have each year to this day is like so hard to look at it any differently. So I would say it's weird from an outside perspective, but I have no third party perspective of just this was yeah, it's interesting because it's like not many other kids, especially when I was growing up, can relate to any of that. But then I kind of found all these other people on like within the franchise who could relate to that. Like Fiona and I had such similar childhoods, and I'm like, oh my god, somebody who gets it. They get that they like watched their dad die on a Chucky movie and it scarred them for a second, and their parents had to explain to them this is fake and your dad's not dead.
And just one also, which is just amazing because just I can't imagine growing up and then seeing my parents die on screen constantly, and then you have that in your mind growing up. It's like, and then they like you just said, they gotta tell you that no, this is fake, this is fake, this is fake. And one thing I loved about the documentary is that you covered all bases of almost every movie. Like what was the inspiration to not only tell this story that of your dad that worked on this film, this franchise, but what inspired you to even do the documentary?
It started as a project in film school, actually. When I was at Florida State, my program, I don't know if they still do it, but they had a semester dedicated to documentary filmmaking. And we watched several documentary films, but there was this one called Stories We Tell. And it was the first documentary that I watched that I was like, oh, documentaries can be interesting and I'm invested in it. And it was because the filmmaker, it was a personal story to her, and she also inserted herself in the documentary, which to me made it more interesting. So I knew I wanted for that semester to do something personal. Originally, I thought I was just going to do it about my dad and growing up with that, but it seemed a little too broad. And a teacher actually suggested I focus on one thing. And obviously, I already referred to Chucky as a little brother, and he was like, I would watch an hour of that. And I was like, okay. So I did a short film that just focused on the familial aspect because I only had 7 minutes. And then afterwards, I had so much footage that I was like, this deserves a feature. These people on this franchise deserve a feature documentary that's kind of like a one-stop shop for everything. So that's where the idea for also making it a retrospect came in, because there's so many behind the scenes interviews scattered across decades and things like that, but there's not like one place where you can kind of get all of that in one go. So it's a little bit more accessible and easy to digest, especially like a franchise that's 30 years
Yeah.
ongoing. That's a lot of stuff out there.
How long did this take? Because just from going from Child's Play 1 all the way to the television series, how long did that take to get all the information, uh, the actors, the directors, obviously your dad, the crew, everybody to just tell their stories?
It took several years
Wow.
to finish this because it did originate as a project in film school. So after that year, I figured I should turn it into a feature. So I started getting interviews with people cast where I could, when I could. So I was going to school in Florida at the time. Alex Vincent lives in Florida. So I just like drove down to see him on a weekend real fast and interview him. I got Jennifer Tilly's interview because I had to evacuate Tallahassee because of a hurricane, and Jennifer happened to be free one of the evenings I was home for a week. So it was kind of like slowly gathering everything over the course of several years. And then when COVID hit, I was able to edit and have like a very long rough cut and be like, okay, I can see the potential for where this has to go. I need things to fill in the gaps that I didn't get in these other interviews. And then I could set out to get those interviews, come back with them, and then edit it all together. But it took a very long time. I understand now why there are so many like people mentioned in the editing section of a documentary, because it's insane.
Yeah, I can imagine because just the amount, because I was watching this is an hour and 40 minutes, and I'm like, wow, she touched Child's Play 1, 2, 3, 4. Even the basis of the themes. She touched on the thematic themes, especially when it came to the LGBTQ, how that affects Don, and just everything was touched. And then even at the end to incorporate your story to play with the title, Living with Chucky. I thought it was just like, okay, brilliant stuff
Oh,
right
thank
there.
you.
And I guess my next question will be a fun one. Will be, do you have? I know it's like everybody always says, like picking a child. Do you have a favorite Chucky movie?
Yes, Child's Play 2.
Two. Why? Why two?
I love that Andy gets a sibling in
Mm,
a sense. I think that's like really the only one, because military school, it's the girlfriend.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I love that Andy has like a sister brother relationship. I'm a younger sister, I have an older sister, so I related to that dynamic. And then the color palette of that film is really awesome. To have a bright pink house in a horror film, that's awesome. And the toy factory scene, there's some really good scenes and moments in that as well that they got to play with for that movie. So I like that one. And the score is like one of the best scores, I think, from that movie.
And I will have to say, just one more final question will be in regards to growing up with this. Do you have a favorite Chucky moment? Because you say you felt like Chucky was like this little brother. Do you have any funny moment, like you go home and Chucky's there? Or do you have like a favorite Chucky moment that you had growing up?
Oh geez. That's interesting. Wow. Yeah. It's just like he's just always been there, so it's hard to pin down one. I guess it's not my favorite, but something that occasionally happens is my dad will put Chucky in the passenger side seat of the car. Anytime he takes the doll home with him, you have to buckle him up like he's a person, because it's a very delicate doll. And several times in high school, he wouldn't take Chucky out of the car to put back in the house. So like I remember an instance like walking by the car and seeing him in the car and not knowing and screaming and like hitting the floor, acting like I was going to die, only to like, that was a brotherly moment where I like got up off the floor and I looked in the car and I was like, ah, fuck you, dude. Like dad left the doll in the car again. And then I like am late to high school, and then it's like, why were you late? Oh, because my dad left Chucky in the car again. I got scared.
And I guess this will be the last question. Where can everyone find you? If this is social media and things of that nature.
Yes, my Instagram is Kyra E Gardner, and my TikTok that I also like push content for whatever I'm working on at the time is Kira Mura. I think I have different usernames because that's really smart of me to do.
Kira, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care.